Why wait to see if you'll get something you like this Valentine's Day when you can go to BlueNile.com and find something you'll love? Whether you're looking to treat yourself to a little winter sparkle or show a galentine how much you appreciate them, Blue Nile offers a wide selection of high-quality designs, expert guidance, and free 30-day returns for the ultimate peace of mind. You can even design your own jewelry. Right now, save up to 50% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
Hello again, hockey fans. Are you ready to brave the wild with me, your host, Paladino Joey? Well, here we are once again today, finally, after a 2-week hiatus, with episode number 43 of Brave the Wild. Today is Friday, March 26th, 2010. And, well, a lot has happened since the last show. We are not going to review all the games that have taken place since then, because that would be silly. That'd be like a 2.5 hour show. More or less today, it's going to be one of those shows where I pretty much brush things with a broad stroke. I'm not going to go into the games per se. I'm going to go into the play of the team, and I'm going to go into the Wild situation. It's going to be kind of a state of the Wild address, but really the real state of the Wild address, like the wrapping up of the season, will be later on, when the season, of course, is over and we're into the postseason, the playoffs, and all that good stuff. Brave the Wild, though, is available on thesportstuff.com and on iTunes. I thank each and every one of you for downloading and listening always to the show. I appreciate it very much. And, of course, I encourage you to join the forums, the message boards on thesportstuff.com. We'll get into that later when we get into the contact details near the end of the show. Also, I'm going to get to a couple of announcements. Brave the Wild now has a Facebook group, for those of you that don't know. As I put that up about a week ago, a lot of you have joined, and I appreciate that very much. But those of you out there that are listening that don't know about it, please join the Facebook group for Brave the Wild. Simply type in Brave the Wild, Minnesota Wild Show. That is what will ensure you're finding the group, and please join it, and feel free to comment on the wall, and I will read them on the show. It will just add to the whole feel of the show. You can add topics, add to the discussion. So that's pretty much the idea of that. And it's just a nice way to kind of put a face to your listeners out there. You have a little community. You kind of get to know each other. The Brave the Wild community. Yeah, sounds like fun, doesn't it? So, yeah, as said, we're going to kind of get into some of the news. Of course, the Wild do make a few acquisitions along the way. They sign a nice young college player who's now an NHL player, Casey Wellman, off to a nice start. We're going to talk about him a little bit in the show today. First of all, though, I'm going to kind of go over the scores that took place, of course, since the last show. Now, the Wild were in the were 5 games sans the Olympic break at the time I did episode number 42. They started off with that 4-0 victory over Calgary on March the 3rd. I remember I was all excited. Here come the Wild, back with a bang. Here we go. We're going into the stretch run here in March. And then they lose 4 games. 2 of them were overtime losses to teams they absolutely should have beat, like the Edmonton Oilers. And, of course, a home game against Florida where the Wild had 9 shots on goal. Yeah, I went into quite the rant in episode number 42. That was pretty frustrating. And, of course, destroyed by Calgary in a Ginla's hat trick and just dismantled by Detroit 5-1. Yeah, and they were dismantled by Detroit tonight as well. Another in-Detroit game and another start for Josh Harding and the same crap. But we're going to continue real quick first, as I remember the that was all ranting and pissed off after that 4-game losing streak. So what did the Wild do? They win 3 in a row. They tease us. Yeah, they tease us. They win in Buffalo 3-2. That was a nice effort. They win a home game against the pesky St. Louis Blues, who always seem to be a problem for the Minnesota Wild, and then a win at home against the Edmonton Oilers on the 16th of March. And it's like, okay, here we go. So then the Wild streak again. And it's just, see, this is where things really, really make me scratch my head, and I'm like, what's going on? What do we have here? Why does this kind of nonsense continue? Like, what is this? So, yeah, you go on a nice win. You go into Buffalo. You win 3 games in a row. You head to Nashville and get absolutely obliterated 5-0 against a team that you're fairly evenly matched with, right? I mean, Nashville's kind of fighting for that 8th seed. At the time, we sort of thought we were. We've kind of been in that 11th place, 12th place range pretty much most of the year. Occasional 9th, 8th, or 9th, or not 8th, but 9th or 10th place range. Yeah, not 8th. God forbid if we ever actually got to that point. Yeah, and breaking news that happens in Minnesota Wild, or the NHL. Making the postseason in the NHL is certainly not what it used to be in the 80s and early 90s. It's finishing 4th place in a division with 70 points. Used to say, hey, at least you're good enough to do that 1st versus 4th place in the divisions, like it used to be in the old days. Minnesota versus Chicago or something like that. Like 91 when the Wild took out the Blackhawks. I mean, you get hot and there you go. Well, it's just not like that anymore. I mean, you need about 90 points, I think, to make the postseason nowadays for the most part. Maybe really high 80s, 88 points to make the postseason. I mean, 70 points, that's pretty sorry. Like, there were a lot of teams with losing records in the postseason years ago. Now you get teams that are 5 to 10 games above 500 missing the playoffs. So this Minnesota Wild team is not one of those bottom-end playoff teams like you would have had back then. It's a shame, but whatever. I mean, and when you lose a game to Nashville 5-0, it's just another one of those unreviewable games. You just turn it on and you turn it off, and you really don't have much to say. It just was a bad game, very poorly played, and that's all there was to it. So then it's a back-to-back, March the 19th against the Columbus Blue Jackets. It's a 2-4 loss, 4-2 loss against the Columbus Blue Jackets, a team the Wild could have beaten very easily, and they just did not. And then this past Sunday, a very entertaining victory over the Calgary Flames at home. That was a fun game. That was a very fun game indeed. So what did the Wild follow up with on Tuesday? 4-1 loss against San Jose. They pretty much just got outplayed by a team that's not even been playing well. The San Jose Sharks have been swooning of just in time for the postseason so they can lose in the first round. Per tradition. I mean, the San Jose Sharks have really, historically, they've been playoff chokes. As remember back in the old days, though, when they first started to make the playoffs back in the mid-90s, early to mid-90s, they would always take out the top-seeded Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings were the team that would choke in the postseason before they started winning Stanley Cups. And the Sharks were the team that would pull off the upsets. And ever since the Sharks became the elite team, they're the ones that gets knocked out in the first round. Good times indeed. Good times indeed for the San Jose Sharks, and not good times for the Wild either. I mean, just a boring, poorly played game, very poorly played game for the Minnesota Wild against the San Jose Sharks this past Tuesday. Plain and simple. As it's just an endless run of nonsense. But then here we go again, another seesaw. As that's what it's been. You win 4 in a row, you win a nice game, you lose 4 in a row, you win 3 in a row, you lose 2 in a row, and then it gets even more kind of tightly. You win one, you lose one. You win one, you lose one, as the Wild head to Philadelphia and beat the Philadelphia Flyers. The Wild have had nice success against the Philadelphia Flyers. And I should also note, has all the Wild power play. Now, this is, of course, in the San Jose games. I'm going to backtrack a teeny bit. The Wild penalty kill, not the power play. The penalty kill has really been stepping up of late. It's been very impressive. The San Jose Sharks didn't really muster much on their power play attempts, yet the Wild would give up they gave up shorthanded goals in the game instead. Shorthanded goals. Penalty kill's doing good, but then we give up shorthanded goals. It's just like,
Oh, come on!
like, what's the deal? Like, what's the deal? It's just absolute BS. It's it's kind of the story of the season. It really is. But the Philadelphia game was a nice little victory for the Wild. The Wild, again, as I mentioned, have had a very successful history against the Philadelphia Flyers. The Wild were outshot 35-21 in this game, as I'll go a little teeny bit more into detail on this particular day. This was Thursday. This was just this past Thursday here, very recent, of course, March the 25th. A nice little 4-3 victory for the Wild. It was fun to, a lot more fun to watch than some of these previous games, as you might imagine. So we continue here, excuse me. This computer is not cooperating as much as I would like it to. Andrew Brunette, now, in the, Andrew Brunette getting his 22nd goal of the game. That was one of the highlight plays of the game. Well, really, the highlight of this game, though, in general, is the Minnesota Wild down 2-0, only 4 minutes into the first period. Figured, well, it's over. This game's over. See, this is where the Wild just tease you so much when they do this. Yeah, it's over. Screw it. We're gonna lose this one. It's a road game against Philadelphia, who's a fairly decent team. Not a great team, but a fairly decent team. So what happens? Yeah, well, the Wild, Marek Zidlicki on the power play. So the Wild special teams really been stepping up of late. They've shut down 16 consecutive power plays at this particular time. 16 consecutive power plays the Wild have shut down. Philadelphia, of course, over 3 in the game. The Wild 50% on the power play. They only had 2 in this game and dominated in it. Philly dominated in the shots and the face-offs in this game. Just absolutely kicked the Wild's butt in those categories. Marek Zidlicki only 34 seconds in, and there's that power play goal. The top line, well, part of the top line. It was kind of like the 1B, I guess you could say. Not 1A, but 1B line with Miettinen and Havlat on the ice. Marek Zidlicki able to bury a nice slap shot for his 6th goal of the year. Only his 6th goal, but his 40th point of the season. 40 points for Marek Zidlicki, the newly signed Zidlicki, who, well, we'll see how much along. We'll see how about midway through this contract if he'll still be able to be a member of the team or not. Of course, that is when his no trade clause is over. Then Havlat getting his 2nd point of the game early in the 3rd period. And this was after Philadelphia then took a 3-1 lead. It's like, great. Only about 10 minutes later, Philadelphia regains a 2-goal lead. But then Havlat in the early 3rd period gives us hope. Guillaume Latendresse and Martin Havlat setting each other up again. Latendresse to Havlat back and forth, ends up finishing with Havlat with his 17th goal of the year. He has eclipsed the 50-point mark on the season. This was his 51st point officially. And then Brunette ties the game with his 22nd goal of the year. As Brunette been very valuable for the Minnesota Wild this season. Very, very valuable for the Minnesota Wild. And, I'm... Let's just say I'm going to be saying some very nice things about Andrew Brunette come the season review. I'm going to save that. It will most likely be episode number 44, where I will I will put the bow on the Minnesota Wild season, and I'm going to have a very nice. It's just a little hint for you, because I tend to pass out postseason awards. That's an even bigger hint. I'm going to have a very nice reward for Andrew Brunette come episode number 44. So sorry for the spoiler there. It might be kind of a spoiler. Maybe you don't really care, but whatever. Kyle Brodziak's been a nice find for the Wild, and he was able to score the game-winning goal 2.5 minutes into overtime, and it felt really good. It just felt fantastic. Kyle Brodziak with his 9th goal of the year buries the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Wild pull out a very surprising victory. I mean, you don't expect the Wild to win on the road in a game that they've pretty much been dominated the whole time, a game that they trailed pretty much the whole time until Brunette was able to tie it up. It was just like, really? This is really, really happening? But the crappy part is, though, the damage has been done, right? The damage has been done. The postseason is pretty much like, it's all but mathematically over for the Wild getting into the postseason. It's all but mathematically over. I've been pretty much removed from it the past week. my frustration got pretty high the past 2 weeks. It pains me. It deeply pains me to say what I'm about to say, but that's a big part of why I didn't even do a show last week, because I was just so frustrated. I was going to do a show, and then part of it was the schedule got in the way, yes, but I didn't try to make that extra time to do the other show, because I just didn't have much to say. I really didn't, whereas today I do have a lot more to say. I don't expect this to be all too long of a show, because there's not all that much going on, to be honest, other than, there's news and there's stuff to talk about, but it's not like, a 4-hour show here that I'm going to stack together, unless you just want to hear game reviews for the next, 2 hours, and I don't think you want that. I don't. I mean, there's time for game reviews, and then I'm doing one right now, and I'm doing the other one here in a second. That's tonight's game, which was about as unwatchable as it gets. It's the seesaw. I mean, this right here, this month of March right here, is the epiphany of the Minnesota Wild season. It has just been a big seesaw. They're a streaky team. Started out the season in a very, very poor run. A couple of things started to go right, and then they went on a really hot run, and then they just started playing 500 hockey, and then the streaks really started to kick in February and March. They get hot, and they get cold, and 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 it's like, what the hell? Okay, this is not a playoff team. When you're this streaky, it's not a playoff team, because when you're only 2 or 3 games over 500, and you're like 6-7 points out of the 8th seed pretty much the whole year, it's over. It's over. To a lot of people, you look at that, you look at the math on being 6-7 points out, and you figure, oh, that's not that bad. We can make a comeback, but not in this day's NHL. It's just not the same. It's not the same, because when you're hot, everybody else is hot, and when you're cold, or when everybody else is cold, oh shucks, now you're cold too. Doggone it, it's just the way it seems to turn out. The Wild, in a lot of ways, they had timely goals in this game, but in a lot of ways they got lucky as well. Philadelphia just fell asleep later in this game. They just fell asleep, and they blew it. Like, Philadelphia blew it in this game. It was fun, it was entertaining, but it wasn't like, here we go, kumbaya, we're going all the way. This is a kick-ass team, kick-ass offense, kick-ass defense, kick-ass goaltending. Yeah, not tonight. Not tonight. Wild lose, folks. The Wild 6-2 tonight. The Wild lost tonight's game by a final score of 6-2, folks. 6-2 against the Detroit Red Wings. And yes, who do you think started in goal, folks? Take one frickin' guess. And it's not an indictment on him. I like Josh Harding an awful lot. But it's so predictable, and it's so weird. Jacques Lemaire always started Josh Harding against the Detroit Red Wings, and we always lost, and it was always an ugly game. Or it'd be one of those really gutted out 1-0 losses where poor Josh Harding had faced 45 shots, and the Wild would give him about 20 shots, and they'd get shut out. Well, no, not the last couple times against Detroit. It has been an absolute drubbing. As the Detroit Red Wings realize, this is no time to bleep around. There's no time to bleep around when you're the Detroit Red Wings right now. They're a better team than they've been. They're a better team than what they've shown most of the season. They're like, why the hell are we the 9th seed? Why are we, the Detroit Red Wings, the best team in the NHL really since 1997? Why are we the 9th seed? It doesn't make any sense. We won the Cup 2 years ago. We should have won the Cup last year until Pittsburgh just tore their hearts right out of their chests in Game 7 on their home ice. And I loved it very much because I'm not a Red Wings fan. This team is not messing around, and they just, when they see the Wild right now, when the Detroit Red Wings see the Wild on the other side of the ring, they just light up. They lick their chops, and they kick our ass. And I see what happened. The two veterans who have been steady for the Wild, Olsen, healthy in Owen Nolan's case. He's been, he's nicked up, but he's been very steady. The Wild kept him. There's a good chance he's going to actually re-sign with the Wild this summer because he's so popular, and he's such a good, legitimate leader. And Internet, who, again, going to be seeing a nice stuff about him on the Minnesota Wild season wrap-up in episode number 44. Andrew Brunette getting a 23rd goal of the season. No 17th goal. And the only real positives of the night, Josh Harding re-injured himself again, most likely the hip. It has been bugging him forever. It has been absolutely bugging him forever. He gave up 4 goals in this game, back up 2. Just a frustrating night for the Wild. On Friend has been really, really deadly. He had 4 points in tonight's particular game. He's been on fire. It's the Wild of late. And Jimmy Howard has just been nice. Nice addition as a goalie for the Detroit Red Wings, and it couldn't come at their time. It's been a nice young goalie. Detroit needed some young blood at that position forever. Osgood's been getting older. Hasek has been getting old, late 90s, basically. It's been because he retired, Shucks, 2001? Yeah. No, retired in 2000, came back in 2001. Very crazy stuff. Regardless of when he retired, he didn't. The Red Wings just look the part right now. They look like a team that could make a run. Maybe Detroit will avenge the old days when the Sharks used to upset the Detroit Red Wings in the first round. I gotta think, if the Reds and Sharks play in the first round, I'm going Detroit. Why not? Right now, who could pick against the Detroit Red Wings against the San Jose Sharks right now? I can't do it. Can't do it. And right now, of course, that's exactly what the matchup would be. Detroit and San Jose in the first round. San Jose with their 100 points, Detroit with their 87. And yeah, there it is. You're going to have a 90.8 seed here. Calgary Flames all but eliminated. Really, they're 4 points out. They've kind of disappeared after their little hot run. They're 9 games above 500, and they're probably not going to make it. Wild are 4 games above 500. They're not going to make it, obviously. They're so far out of it, it's like, forget it. Chicago, only 1 point behind San Jose. It's going to be a really nice run. And I was wrong about Nashville. They were, they were down in that 8th seed range. They've floated all the way up to 5th seed. That would be a really interesting matchup, seeing Phoenix and Nashville in the first round of the 4th against the 5. Woo, that'd be a gut 'em out series, I think. 2 very gutty teams that they've kind of been under the radar for forever. Phoenix Coyotes have absolutely emerged as a contender in the Western Conference this season. Their goaltending is awesome, their defense is awesome, and they score goals too. I mean, they just get it done. They do everything they need to win. They win on the road, they win at home, and they have been on fire of late. Shucks, they are 2 points behind San Jose for the best record in the Western Conference. Can you believe that? That is pretty amazing, considering the improvement the Phoenix Coyotes have made. And hey, that's a good sign for the Minnesota Wild, because there is hope. There is potential hope. Yeah, the cupboards are bare in Houston, but there is that farm system beyond that. Chuck Fletcher's drafting, I think, is going to be a lot better than Doug Riseborough's, and I think it's going to show. His ability to find his eye for talent is very, very intriguing indeed. So I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to talk a little bit about that right after this. We are back here on Brave the Wild, episode number 43, which is a reminder for iPod users along with Microsoft Zune and other MP3 players. Welcome back to the show. We're going to get kind of more and more into some of this stuff, some of the Minnesota Wild stuff going on. Now, of course, they've been great at home, 14 games above 500 at home, 10 games under 500 on the road. That's another thing, the Wild. That's been a huge issue for the Wild this season. If they were even halfway decent on the road, like everybody else in the division other than Edmonton, they're a playoff team. They're a playoff team. Guaranteed. But they're not, so the hell with it. And they've lost some really cruddy home games this year as well. For the most part, they've been dominating at home, but they've had a couple of really lame losses at home, including that Florida one. That's just an unforgivable loss. Florida's not a playoff team. In fact, they're significantly worse than the Minnesota Wild. Ridiculous. Stupid. retarded. Yeah, you get the idea. And real quick, though, I better mention this. This isn't an announcement, but it's a reminder. The Brave the Wild does have a Twitter account, twitter.com/Brave the Wild. That's it. Look it up. Give it a follow. I tend to tweet during games, and sometimes even as stuff goes on during the week when they're not playing. I'll be tweeting, of course, during the off-season. I'll be tweeting, I'm sure. Obviously, I'm going to want to keep up with the Wild and keep you updated with the Wild, as well as the Facebook group. Yeah, I already talked about that, though. So, yeah, I'm going to get more into this Chuck Fletcher. I want to talk about Chuck Fletcher some more here really quick. This Chuck Fletcher, well, you get the idea. Yeah, the cupboards have been bare in Houston, and Doug Risebrough is a big part of that. Now, he's not the worst general manager of all time. In fact, early on, I thought he did a pretty good job, but the problem was, well, yeah, in the first 2 rounds he did a good job, but everything beyond the second round, it had been virtually zero. There had been virtually zero production, other than maybe Clayton Stoner finally, who was a 3rd-round pick in 2002, may finally be in something, and I actually wouldn't be surprised if he is. Pardon me, 2004 draft, but you get the idea. I actually like Clayton Stoner an awful lot. But there are reasons for me to be somewhat encouraged here with this team, because if someone has an eye for talent, it's Chuck Fletcher. It's Chuck Fletcher. Now, not every move he made was fantastic, but even Chuck Kobasu, who's been hurt most of the year, and has been kind of a slight disappointment, he's a fact. He's still a factor. He's a 3rd or 4th line guy who can get 20 goals when healthy. This year has just not been his year health-wise. Andrew Ebbett, a quirky, nice 4th line player who unfortunately faced the injury bug earlier. He's been a factor when healthy. I mean, yeah, of course, bit by the concussion junction issue earlier in the year, but he came back very quickly, and, he's a quirky player. Not the most valuable guy or anything, but he's been playing really well of late. He gets timely goals when no one else is getting anything going. Guys like Andrew Ebbett and Robbie Earl tend to show up. They've been valuable assets to this team. James Shepherd finally got his 6th point of the season tonight. 6th point of the season for James Shepherd. He had 5 points probably for about 3 or 4 months. Just an unbelievably poor run for James Shepherd. And the $1 million question is, how long will he be in this organization? And the other $1 million question is, why isn't he in Houston? I mean, the only logical answer to that question is there's no one else to call up. That is how bare the cupboards have been in Houston. Very, very rough. But yeah, the Guillaume Latendresse acquisition, we're going to get more into that also into episode 44. But I'm just saying, this does give me reason for hope. It really does. Latendresse, Cam Barker, not completely sold on him just yet. But at the same time, at the point the Wild acquired Cam Barker, how he'd already been having kind of a somewhat quiet, not so great season for the Chicago Blackhawks after a 40-point season last year. Pretty quiet year, really, for Cam Barker. He kind of already hit the wall, and I think any potential for him to really surge was kind of gone for the year. Whereas when you get Latendresse way back in late November, plenty of time for him to surge and do something. And he's had one hell of a year. He really, truly has. Guillaume Latendresse has been a major, major acquisition to this team and to the future of this team. And if it's not smoke and mirrors, just one hot little year, and I don't think it is. I mean, I really don't think the Lumberjack is just the Lumberjack Latendresse. That's what I call him, of course, because of his big burly appearance. French-Canadian, big beard, big strong dude. The Lumberjack. I mean, why not? I continue here. When you're able to add a prospect like that, it's just amazing. A team that's starving for a goal scorer, it's just absolutely wonderful, and it gives hope to this team. It really does. Kyle Brodziak was a better addition than I expected. I really like him. Yeah, he's a 3rd-line guy, but still, hey, somebody's got to play 3rd line, right? And you got a guy like him, it's pretty great. It's pretty wonderful, and Brunette, of course, has been fantastic in this system. I've been very happy with, and of course he's healthier. Just been so impressed with Andrew Brunette this year that I can't say enough good about Andrew Brunette. I just can't. So at this point in time, we're going to move on to the final topic. Just saying, though, there is reason for hope. Brunette, of course, not going to be part of the long-term plans, but I got to think I want Brunette on this roster until he decides to retire. I want Andrew Brunette on the roster here on out, period. I'd be very disappointed if he's not. Along with Owen Nolan, shucks. I mean, you got to have veterans. It's not like they're a wasted roster spot, for cripe's sake, you know? It's really not. Especially when you have guys like Danny Ehrman who haven't scored a goal in 3 weeks, haven't scored a point in 3 weeks in Houston. Not a point. Peter Kalis has been a complete bust. Colton Gillies has been a bust at this point. He's not a bust, but he's been a bust for the season, we'll just say. Nothing very special going on for him. Cody Ullman still not showing signs that he's ready to go to the NHL. It's just been a weird year for the Wild. It really has. So I kind of going a little bit far into it because this is probably most likely, unless I'm able to come back next week, which maybe I will get episode 44 in next week. Still kind of not sure how things are going to turn out because the lawn cleanups, that's my second job, tend to take up a ton of time every April and November, and it's hard to release a show when I'm working about 70 hours a week. So it's about a potential 3-week hiatus from this show whenever I start those. So 44 actually just might not be the season wrap-up. It might end up being 45. But then again, we'll just have to wait and see with that. So I'm just going to say it's probably, I'm going to say there's a 60% chance there'll be a show next week, and then episode 45 would be released end of April, early May, potentially. So just letting you know ahead of time, if there's no, when there's that point when there's no show, that I didn't quit, okay? So I'm not going away. So some of you that may prefer that tough crap, I'm sticking around. I'm not going anywhere. I'm very happy with this show. I enjoy doing it very, very much. And I appreciate you listeners out there very, very, very much indeed. I truly do. So I would like you listeners to please consider calling into the phone lines here on thesportstuff.com, 209-736-7877, 209-736-7877. It is a voicemail. Leave your name and town and opine, shout out, question, comment, whatever it is. And you'll be right here on Brave the Wild. You'll be able to talk hockey with me. We'd also like you to please join the message boards. This is very important. Please join the message boards on thesportstuff.com so you can join the discussion on that website, which is wonderful enough to host my show and give me the opportunity to have this show at all. It has just been terrific doing this show for about a year and a half now. Appreciate it always from Dylan Richardson, the executive producer of thesportstuff.com. All you have to do is click the button that says TSS Sports in the upper right-hand corner and then click register and create a name that makes sense. It's not a big jumbled numbers and X's and whatever. And there you go, because obviously then it would most likely be spam and admins Rusty or Dylan, of course, would delete that account if you did that. So have it be something that makes sense. And there you go. You can interact with me, Paladino Joey, right there on thesportstuff.com. I'd appreciate it very much. And also, finally, again, please join the Facebook group for Brave the Wild. All you have to do is type in Minnesota or Brave the Wild, Minnesota Wild Show, or Minnesota Wild, or whatever, and you'll most likely be able to find it. And then click join, and you're in. And you could comment on the wall there. It'd be terrific. So I want to thank you for listening once again today. We're not going to make the playoffs, but we're going to keep up with this team. We're going to keep up watching the potential progress of some of these young guys like Casey Wellman, who's been a nice addition for the Wild. It's another nice prospect, and we're very happy that Chuck Fletcher was able to grab him. All indications are this guy has a chance to be a pretty nice NHLer. He really does. The speed's there, the confidence is there, the puck presence, everything. He's got a presence on the ice that shows he's got a chance to be pretty good, and he's ready to play here in the next level. He's ready to play at the next level, not just screw around in Houston for the next 8 years, which is what Danny Ehrman might be doing. So, God forbid, I hope that isn't the case for him. So, we're going to conclude the show. I thank you always for listening, and we'll be back. We'll probably be back next week, as I kind of was forgetting the time here. Probably I'll get one more show in, And then it'll be the season wrap-up, end of April and May. And if I don't return, well, that means I'm gone already until end of April or early May. So there you go. Regardless, we will be back sooner than later, and we'll talk to you then. Take care.